Well, hey, man, it's great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out. I appreciate it. And I would love to begin our conversation looking at the calendar. We're in April, and in 2020, everything stopped on a dime. So I'm curious, how did you survive the pandemic? How did it affect your business? And how has it changed you?
So I think that the pandemic was definitely crippling for people who needed face to face. They needed something that was tangible. That's who the pandemic really impacted, and there were some things that um, hurt me as far as like meeting with people and stuff like that. Like I do a lot of podcast in person and virtual,
Yeah.
so there were some people, who there were people I was really excited to have podcasts with, and they would be like, "Hey, no, like family sick or something like that." Like, so I had to like either reschedule or cancel completely because I couldn't, get a hold of them again or whatnot. So, I think that that was probably the worst part.
Yeah.
Other than that, if people just, were being cautious and really interested on working with me, whether it be in the studio or doing podcasts or whatever, that was probably still we were still able to do it because we just knew that we were able to be precautious and like, hey, are you good? Have you been around anybody? Hey, I've been around somebody. Let's do it next week. Stuff
Sure.
like that.
You know, what's interesting about it is that it as a podcaster, it gave people more people were home. You had more latitude to kind of pick the people that you wanted to be around, and you didn't have to do it in person. You could do it through Zoom. Because I know in the world of jazz, there was a lot of musicians that toured their whole lives, and finally they were at home, and they had the opportunity to do it. So there were some silver linings that went into it when the world slowed down for sure.
Yeah, and if you were the type of person who you just knew like what your audience was or what the people that you wanted to work with, then you could kind of like pick around that because if
Yeah,
you knew that some people were just not going to be able to do it, then you can kind of like, "No, okay, let me funnel, what I'm doing around to the right people
yeah,
so that I'm not stopgapping myself and like stopping myself from getting work done."
yeah.
And I think a lot of big companies kind of they didn't know what to do. Like I can understand so many Americans and even just people around the world were super frustrated,
Yeah.
but you haven't been through this. Like this
Yeah.
isn't new.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah, it was a whole different deal. And the thing is, a lot of these calamities tend to be in certain regions, but it was the whole globe. Like every single person on this planet had to go through it one way or another, you know? So let me ask you this. On paper, it's very clear what you do. But if I put you in front of a bunch of third graders at career day and one of the kids said, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
So I usually like to tell people about I actually do a lot of stuff,
Yeah,
but I tell people about my job as a automation technician for Owens Corning because that's like my day job.
yeah,
And I tell people about that because I want them to know that that is something that I'm proud of doing. I actually went through a kind of like an academy or an institution that was like 3 months long, where I'm a military veteran, and so this company called Rockwell Automation allowed me to go to that program to learn automation. So
oh,
I got hired by Owens Corning from that, and then on top of that, I have a company called Damage Media Group where we create content for companies and individuals who just need great content, and then Romero Records is my podcasting and I do like voiceovers and stuff like that. So I usually lead with like my day job, just
yeah,
that takes up a lot of my time.
sure. Yeah.
I love telling people about the other creative, fun things that I do because as my companies, because those things are just like those are my kids, those are my babies.
Yeah.
So I love to make sure people know about all of it.
But I think it's important that the young kids know that professionals like you are not only do you have a day job that's reliable that can take care of you and yours, but you also are going after your dream. You're doing your dream thing.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
and I think that's been a shift in society. Period. Because I work with older people. I work with people who are in their 60s, and I look at like when they're ready to retire, those who are in like their mid 60s, they're like, all right, about time for retirement. They talk about it all the time. And I'm just like, what are you going to do? Like,
Yeah,
that's what I'm curious. Like when
yeah,
you're done and your last day, what are you going to do? And I think that the younger generation, I would say, my age and younger, we have decided that that's not really a thing. Like I go to work for the because most of these guys that I work with have been there for like 30 something years.
yeah,
But like good luck finding somebody my age and younger to work in one spot for 30 something years.
yeah,
So I think it's important for people who are younger to understand that this world is so advanced and so changing that you have the ability to do whatever you want as often as you want. That you don't
absolutely.
need to just stay in one spot and do this one thing. Get a day job and have like 3 side hustles if you want. It's
Yep.
it's fine.
I came from the Gen X generation, and that was kind of the beginnings of people looking more at like exploring and traveling and finding what really like fits. And that's just totally accelerated with every other successive generation. There's just and I think that the especially the ones that are coming out of college or either entering college now, there's really an entrepreneurial spirit of doing things on their own. They're not thinking company corporate mentality. They're thinking, what can I do that I'm good at and just do it, just go out there and make my own gig, you know? So,
Yeah. I also think that people who are your age are definitely going to be like kind of taking over for I guess the boomers, and like they say like so many boomers have all these companies. It's like billions and billions of dollars of companies that are just going to go away because they're all
yeah.
retired. They
Uh-huh.
need to sell their companies. So I think that Gen X is like, I'll buy it.
Right. Right.
And
Yeah.
they'll take over and just make a killing because the boomers started the company, and all you gotta do
Yeah.
is take it over and boom,
That's
you
true.
you know?
Yeah, that's totally true. So let me turn the tables. If you when you were in the 3rd grade, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh my god. I wanted to be I wanted to be an astronaut.
Okay.
That's like the stereotypical, like, "I wanna be an astronaut," and
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to do because I was so infatuated with space, and I had no idea what that entailed, and then when I got older and, like, learned more about, just, like, what it takes to actually be an astronaut, because I was in the Air Force and, started learning about, like, just what pilots do and stuff like that, and then I was like, "Oh, so you would have to know how to fix everything, and not only that, you're in space. So if you just don't feel like being in space anymore, you have to wait until everybody else is ready. The mission is done, and
Uh,
then you go back to
yeah.
Earth. So that's something like those are just like small things that I was like, yeah, I don't feel like putting because your life is kind of on pause at
Uh-huh.
that point. So it was one of those things where, as a kid, you looked at face value. That's what you're looking at
Yeah.
is what's really, something that's just interesting, looks cool. But when you get older, you kind of gain more information and you find out like, oh, that's what I would have to do.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, totally. So how did these seeds of creativity and art and music and all of these things, how were they planted in you to grow into your business and who you are today?
I would definitely take a lot from my mom. Like she did music, she sang a lot. Um and she also was huge into just telling me and I've got two older sisters. She would tell us all the time like you could do anything. Like, she my dad is more of a like I whatever you want to do, I support you. But my mom was more of a like a rah type of person. So uh and I took it literally. Like when she said you can do anything, I took it literally. So I do so much stuff because I think it was kind of instilled in me as a younger person, um to literally do whatever I want because she made me believe that I could.
Yeah.
And as I meet people in my adult age, as I like think about what their parents were like. I know this sounds kind of weird, but like when I see them as a person, I'm
Yeah,
like, I bet their parents were like this because they either take risk or they don't take risks because their parents were either supportive of them or they weren't.
yeah, yeah. No, I dig it. So, who's been a hero for you? Who have you admired?
There's a lot of people, but I really have been thinking about that lately because I always like when I was younger, I was kind of anti that question because your hero is like kind of like who people judge you by. It's
Right.
like, oh, that's your hero, that's the person you think is the greatest. So when I was a kid, I was like so anti that, but now I think that there's a lot of people. I've been big into Dr. Dre
Yeah,
because he he always had like this supporting role. Like a lot of people don't think of Dr. Dre as like this big name star. He wasn't like a Michael Jackson or anything like that. He was the beat maker. He was the engineer in the studio. He was the one that was helping other people get a big name for them. And so that's really what I'm doing now is I'm helping other artists really catapult their careers and stuff like that. So he's somebody I've been looking up to. And he started his Beats by Dre headphones
yeah,
and sold it to Apple for $3.2 billion. So that's something that he used his name just to be able to become a billionaire. And I think that that's important that we celebrate somebody who stood on their own name.
yeah,
They stood behind who they were and didn't try to fabricate, something else. They weren't living a life that was a lie. They just like, hey, I'm Dr. Dre and this
yeah.
is who I am. And then they were able to monetize that and become very wealthy. So I think that's something to be celebrated.
Yeah, his karma came back to him. Like, all of those things that he did came back, but he was also a good businessman, you know? I mean, and there's just a lot of people that we knew them. Like, I every time I hear Dr. Dre, I think about that album cover, where he's right in the middle of it.
Mhm.
And there's so many people out there that had albums early on, like, I mean, even Will Smith, I mean, look at him. I mean, he was just running around with DJ Jazzy Jeff doing their thing. Who knew that he was gonna become this guy? I mean, there's just so many examples of that, but, they just keep their eye on the prize. They're talented, somebody finds it, and that's it. They're on their way, you know?
Yeah, there's so many people out there who I think that they're doing a great job of, as I was saying about Dre, is just being true to themselves
Yeah,
and standing on their own name because it can be difficult to do, but at the same time, it's the simplest thing to do.
yeah,
Like
uh-huh,
just wake up and be the truest version of you. I love this quote by Dr. Seuss. It says, "You are you, and that's truer than true. Nobody will ever be youer than you." And
yeah,
so it's saying, just be you,
yeah,
because there's 7 billion people on the planet.
uh-huh,
There's only one you.
yeah,
So just do the best job you can at being yourself,
yeah,
because that will stand out.
yeah, for sure. So let me ask you this as a podcaster, if you could get a dream guest to interview, who would it be?
Man, there's a lot. Honestly, one person that I know this sounds like super cliche, but Joe Rogan, like
Yeah,
he's always talking to people and
uh-huh,
interviewing people, but I don't think any of his guests ask him good questions.
yeah,
And I think that we need somebody who's great at asking questions to talk to him and
yep,
and pick his brain and see what he's been through because like he talks about it on his podcast and stuff like that. Like I would say he's the biggest podcaster right now
yeah,
out of all platforms, but like I don't think that we've really truly understood who Joe is for like all the things that he's done. Like people forget, like, he did Fear Factor.
huh,
He's been a comedian for years, but the businessman side of like he's got the deal with On It and all these other companies where it's like let's get to know the real Joe Rogan.
yeah, that's totally right. Yeah, The thing about Rogan, though, that I'm always impressed by is that he's really good at interviewing. He's really good at what he does. Like, I grew up watching Larry King, and Larry just always seemed a little clunky to me. Like, I get that he's Larry King. I get everybody wants to be on the show, but there's not this fluidity. There's not this element that Joe brings into it because he's so good at it, you know. It's a different level. So let me ask you this. What is your drive and motivation every day? You're doing a lot of stuff. You're going after your dream. You got a day job. What gets you out of bed? What gets you to not only do good work, but to evolve as a human being?
I would say one of my big motivators is just the mindset of be better than who I was yesterday. I had a coach and teacher in high school, Coach Camp. He would always say, "You can call me anything, but you can't call me lazy." And that really stuck with me because I was like, "Man, like that really is like one of the biggest insults to somebody is." But to me, right, to somebody else, that might not be like whatever,
Yeah.
but to me, calling me lazy, that would like really hurt me. Like that
Uh-huh.
would really insult me. So, that has something that has driven me,
Yeah.
my entire life is just outwork people. Like, and that's another thing. Like, you might not be the best, and I don't consider myself, the best at anything as far as like, because I know so many other people who do the things that I do, and I think other people are better than me, but it doesn't mean they work harder than me.
Right.
And I think that's something that you can prove that. I can prove I work harder than you by, my output and the things that I'm doing. But, better is subjective. So I think that that's something that really drives me is just being better than who I was yesterday and showing other people like you mentioning about like telling younger kids like, what do you do and doing multiple things. That's something that I value
Yeah.
is being able to just constantly be an example of hard work. Like I wouldn't consider myself like some great model citizen that I think kids should be. And I just find myself wanting to lead by example. Just get get work done. That's the type of person I've always just been.
That's kind of the bedrock, I think, of parenting. You can say whatever you want to kids, but unless they see you do it and they see the result and they see it happen, that's the proof right there.
Yeah, I think people trust what they see
Yeah.
and not really what you say because it's like the you can talk the talk, but can you walk the walk? And I think that most people they want to see people do something,
Yeah.
and there's people out there who no matter what you do, they're not going to trust they're going to trust you or they're not going to believe you or whatever. But for those people, they're the outliers. But I think most people just want to see somebody who if they say they're gonna do it and then they do it, it's like, man, I trust that guy. I know he's gonna be committed to whatever he says he's gonna do. I
Yeah.
had one of the artists I work with. That was something that he said. He was like, man, that's one thing I know about you, Jack. Like, if you say something, you're gonna do it. And I was
Yeah.
like, that's all I need. That's
Yeah.
all I need.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this as a music fan, what was the first concert that you saw that blew you away?
So I'll be honest, I'm not a big concert person.
Okay. All right. That's fine. That's
Yeah,
fine.
I, um, I have been to a few, and I actually thrown my own for my artist, and that was really fun. I
Yeah.
will say that, like, having so I created an album, in Memphis, and it was all, like, hip hop rap music, but, like, it was very untraditional, Memphis, quote, unquote, music.
Yeah.
And that was really fun. And then so we ended up having a concert for the artist, and we just call it the Come to DMG concert. And basically, all the artists were on stage, at some point together, and then also we let them have like their individual time, and that was amazing
Yeah.
because I, as I said earlier, like I value giving other people power. I value empowering a creative to be like, hey, I know this stuff, but now you know this stuff,
Yeah.
and I know how to do this. Now you know how to do this. So I think that was like one of the most fun concerts that I ever been to. So yeah.
Right on, man. That's a great answer. So let me ask you this. If you had a dream tonight, you ran into the 18-year-old version of you, and you could give your younger version a piece of advice based on the wisdom you've gained in your life up to this point. What advice would you impart on that young version?
Definitely don't stop whatever you do. Like if you want to do something, just keep at it
Yep.
because I've seen so many people over my lifetime who were super talented at something and then they just stopped. And I'm just like, why did that person stop? Like I feel like they were going to be really good.
Yeah.
And I've noticed the people who just keep going and they just keep doing things,
Yeah.
those are the ones who end up being successful because they can see the long vision. And I think a lot of people nowadays, like in social media, there's so many people who just see overnight success,
Yeah.
but it's not really overnight success. It
Right.
took that person maybe 10 years to get to that time period of success. So yeah, if you put your mind to something, just don't stop. So I would definitely tell myself that.
So, of all of the things that you've done so far in your life, what are you the proudest of?
I would definitely say the the concept of how I've just like done multiple things. I know that's kind of it sounds like a cop out kind of answer, but
No, no.
like um the fact that I've been able to put together my life the way I have, like having a day job as an automation technician and then also having a company that does content creation and then Romero Records where I'm doing podcast and being able to do audio books and stuff like that. Like most people can't do that. They can't grasp that concept of doing so many different things. And a lot of times always wondered like why people aren't doing things. I'm like, am I wrong for like doing all these different things? Like, is that wrong of me? Like, am I doing something wrong? But then I realized like, oh, most people can't do this. Like they can't do all these things at the same time.
Mhm.
So that's I'm proud that I'm able to just continue to do all these things at the same time.
So, everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, colleagues, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think I'm a person who one is hardworking, as I said earlier. Like I think I'm a very hardworking person, but two, I'm an ever evolving person. I think that those two in combination of working hard and evolving helps me become a better person
Yeah.
because I've noticed how much I've changed over time. And I think the biggest thing that I've noticed is like my compassion for people. I think compassion is like maturity. Like I think those two like go hand in hand. Like when you're a kid, like kids are like could be so cruel,
Yeah.
right? Like they make fun of somebody like, oh, you know, you did that, blah, 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 and they're pointing fingers. But like maturity to me is when you have compassion for people like, oh, I'm so sorry, like that happened to you. And you can even empathy, like if you're like, well, you know, this happened to me and my family, and I know what you're going through, that kind of stuff. So I think the fact that I have accepted that this world is ever changing and I need to evolve with it and I'm willing to work hard at that. I'm willing to work hard at changing with whatever is going on in the world. I'm very proud of the ability to be that kind of person because not everybody's like that. Not everybody likes change.
Yep.
Not everybody likes to evolve. So
Yeah. Well said, man. So if anyone wants to get involved with your company, they need good content, anybody that wants to reach out, what's the good business?
definitely reach me on you can reach me on Instagram and us SUPAHENDO. That's Supahendo. And then also I have Facebook and it's just Jackson Henderson. That's my name. And then also you can reach me by email. It's contact at damagemediagroup.com. And that way we can stay in contact. So yeah,
Right on.
those are usually like my avenues of contact.
Go-tos. Right on, man. Jackson, this has been wonderful. Thank you, sir. Good luck. Best of luck with everything. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.